Alara Voss had learned, a long time ago, that survival meant silence. She was 26 years old, and for nearly half her life, she had carried a secret so heavy that some nights she could barely breathe under its weight. She was a Lycan. Not the proud, celebrated kind that walked freely through the halls of Blackthorn Ridge, with their heads high and their claws sharpened for battle. She was the other kind, the kind whispered about in fear, the kind whose blood was said to be tainted, mixed with a bloodline the pack had cast out generations ago. Her mother had been one of them, exiled, hunted, and finally silenced before Alara turned 12. Alara remembered little of that night except the smell of smoke and her mother's voice telling her to run and never, ever let anyone see what she truly was. So she ran, and she hid, and she became someone else. By the time she reached adulthood, Alara had perfected the art of disappearing in plain sight. She worked as a healer in the castle of Blackthorn Ridge, tending to wounds, mixing herbs, and keeping her head down. She drank a bitter tonic every morning, one she brewed herself, made from moonflower root and silver ash, to keep her true nature buried deep beneath her skin. It was not comfortable. It left her tired, sometimes dizzy, and always aching in a way she could never explain to anyone. But it worked. It kept her safe. For 6 years, no one had suspected a thing. Not even the Alpha King. King Draven Ashgrave was not a man people underestimated. He had inherited the throne of Blackthorn Ridge at the age of 19, after his father was killed in a border skirmish, and in the years since he had built a reputation as fierce, fair, and impossible to fool. His enemies feared him, his people respected him, and yet, for all his strength, there was one thing he had never been able to find: a mate strong enough to complete the bond rite. The bond rite was ancient magic, older than the kingdom itself. It was said that when 2 true mates completed it, every wall between them fell away, every secret, every fear, every hidden truth laid bare in front of the world. It was not a ceremony for the faint of heart. Many had tried and failed, their bonds shattering under the weight of what the rite revealed. Draven had avoided it for years, unwilling to risk exposing himself so completely to someone who might not deserve that trust. Until Alara. He noticed her first in the quiet hours after a battle, when the castle halls were filled with the wounded and the air smelled of blood and fear. She moved between the injured with a steadiness he rarely saw, speaking softly, working quickly, never once flinching at the sight of torn flesh or broken bone. She did not know he was watching from the doorway that night. If she had, she might have hidden even that steadiness, afraid it would draw eyes she could not afford. But it was too late. Draven had already seen something in her he could not name. Over the following months, he found reasons to visit the healing wing more often than a king needed to. He told himself it was to check on his soldiers. He told himself many things. But the truth was simpler than he wanted to admit. He wanted to see her. Alara noticed his visits too, and they frightened her more than anything had in years. Kings did not linger near healers without reason. Kings did not remember the names of servants, or ask about their families, or find small ways to make them smile. She told herself to be careful. She told herself this attention would end badly, the way everything good in her life eventually did. But she could not stop the way her chest warmed when he walked into the room. She could not stop hoping, even as she hated herself for it. The trouble began, as trouble often does, with politics. The Council of Blackthorn Ridge had grown restless. A king without a mate was a king without an heir, and a king without an heir was a kingdom standing on unstable ground. Whispers of rival packs eyeing the throne grew louder each season. The council pressed Draven relentlessly, demanding he choose someone, anyone, and complete the bond rite before the autumn moon, when the ancient magic was said to be strongest. Draven resisted for weeks. He turned away noble daughters and warrior women alike, each offered to him like a prize to be claimed. None of them were what he wanted. None of them made him feel the way a single conversation with Alara did. Finally, one evening, as the sun set over the training fields, he found her alone, gathering herbs near the castle wall. He did not plan what he was about to do. He simply knew, with a certainty that surprised even him, that he could not let this moment pass. "Alara," he said, and she startled, nearly dropping the basket in her arms. "Your Majesty," She bowed quickly, eyes down, the way she always did. Safe, small, invisible. "I want you to be my mate," he said. "I want to complete the bond rite with you." For a moment, Elara could not speak. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain he could hear it. This was the one thing she had feared more than anything else. Not rejection, not danger, but this. Closeness. A bond that would strip away everything she had spent her life hiding. "I cannot," she whispered. "Why not?" She had no answer. That would not reveal too much, so she said nothing at all. Draven studied her face, confused by the fear he saw there, but he did not push. He simply said, "Think on it. I will not force you," and walked away, leaving her standing alone with her basket of herbs and her racing heart. She did not sleep that night. She thought of her mother, of the fire, of the years spent swallowing bitter tonics just to survive. She thought of what would happen if the Rite revealed her secret in front of the entire court. Exile at best. Death more likely. But she also thought of Draven's eyes, steady and warm, looking at her as though she were someone worth seeing. In the end, it was not bravery that made her decision. It was exhaustion. She was tired of hiding, tired of drinking poison every morning just to feel safe, tired of a life built on fear instead of truth. If this was how it ended, then at least, for one moment, she would be seen for who she truly was. She agreed to the rite. The ceremony was held 3 weeks later, on the night of the autumn moon, in the great hall of Blackthorn Ridge. The entire court gathered to witness it. Nobles, warriors, healers, and the council members, who had pushed so hard for this moment. Candles lined the stone walls, and an ancient circle of silver and moonstone had been laid upon the floor, glowing faintly under the light of the full moon through the high windows. Elara stood across from Draven inside the circle, her hands trembling despite her best effort to hide it. She had stopped drinking her tonic 3 days earlier, as the rite required total purity. No magic, no potions, no masks of any kind, only truth. The elder priestess began the chant, her voice low and steady, and the silver circle beneath their feet began to glow brighter. Elara felt something stir inside her, something she had suppressed for so long it felt almost foreign, like a caged animal finally sensing the door was about to open. She looked at Draven. He looked back at her, his expression calm, trusting, unaware of what was about to happen. "Do you come to this rite in truth?" the priestess asked. "I do," Draven said without hesitation. The priestess turned to Elara. "Do you come to this rite in truth?" Alara's throat tightened. She thought of running. She thought of every excuse she could give, but there was nowhere left to run, not anymore. "I do," she whispered. The moment the words left her mouth, the silver circle flared with blinding light. Elara felt every barrier she had built over the years begin to crumble. The tonic's lingering effects, the years of careful control, the walls around her heart. And she gasped as her true nature surged forward, unstoppable, undeniable. Gasps rippled through the great hall as her eyes shifted, glowing gold, then silver, then a deep, striking color none of them had ever seen before. Her skin seemed to shimmer faintly, marked with patterns that had been hidden beneath years of suppression. The court recognized it instantly, even if they did not understand it. This was no ordinary Lycan bloodline. "She is tainted," someone hissed from the crowd. "Impure blood, in the sacred circle." "Silence," Draven commanded, though his own eyes were wide with shock. He turned to Elara, searching her face as the last of the magic settled. She stood trembling, tears streaming down her cheeks, waiting for the moment he would turn away in disgust, the moment everything would fall apart. But he did not turn away. He stepped closer instead, closing the distance between them, his hand reaching out to gently touch her face. "Why did you hide this from me?" "Because I was afraid," she said, her voice breaking, "afraid of what would happen if anyone knew. My mother was killed for this blood. I thought I would be killed too." Draven's jaw tightened, not with anger at her, but with something fiercer, protectiveness, and a slow, dawning understanding. He had studied the old texts of the kingdom more than most gave him credit for. He knew the stories of the bloodline that had been exiled generations ago, the one said to carry a rare strength thought lost to time, a bloodline that, according to ancient prophecy, was meant to return one day to strengthen the Alpha line, not weaken it. He looked around at the stunned court, then back at Ilara. "This is not a curse," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is the bloodline our ancestors wrote of, the one prophesied to stand beside the Alpha King when the kingdom needed it most." Murmurs spread through the hall, disbelief mixing with awe. Some of the council members exchanged uneasy glances, the same ones, Ilara would later learn, who had long suspected the truth about her mother's line, and said nothing, fearing what it might mean for their own positions of power. "She hid her blood because your laws would have killed her," Draven continued, his voice hardening as he faced the council. "That ends tonight." He turned back to Ilara, and in front of the entire court, he took her hand. "I do not care what you were told to fear. I care about who you are. And I choose you, not despite this truth, but because of it." Ilara felt something break open inside her chest, something that had been closed for so long she had almost forgotten what it felt like to hope. She had spent her whole life believing that being seen meant being destroyed. But here, in this moment, being seen meant being chosen. The bond rite was completed under the light of the full moon, the ancient magic settling between them not as a punishment, but as a promise. When it was done, a warmth spread through Ilara, unlike anything she had ever known. The warmth of no longer being alone, of no longer needing to hide. In the weeks that followed, Draven kept his word. He stood before the council and dismantled the old laws that had condemned half-bloods and mixed lineages for generations, laws built on fear rather than truth. Some resisted, a few left the court in protest, but most, in time, came to see what Draven had seen from the very beginning, that Ilara's strength had never been a threat to the kingdom. It was exactly what the kingdom needed. Ilara still remembered her mother sometimes, in quiet moments, and the grief never fully left her. But she no longer carried it alone, and she no longer carried it in silence. She walked the halls of Blackthorn Ridge now with her head high, not because she had stopped being afraid entirely, but because she had finally learned that hiding was not the only way to survive. Sometimes, love did not ask you to be smaller. Sometimes, it asked you to finally, fully, be yourself. And for the first time in her life, Ilara was not afraid to be seen,